Are you curious about how food is made? Where it comes from? Or even why in the world we cook it the way we do? Are you intrigued by flavor? Are you curious about what Flavor by Chef T has to offer? Well, you're in the right place. Welcome to the Let's Talk Flavor with Chef T podcast. I'm your host, MJ, and I'll be bringing you all your need to know information on recipes, cooking tips, and tricks, as well as in-depth interviews with the chef himself. Join us as we get to know how Chef T creates all of these delicious dishes in the kitchen.
Each episode, we interview Chef T and get answers to questions you're asking. This week's episode is Creating Flavor, the old-fashioned way and the Chef T way.
Chef T has some new ways of creating his flavors, but really he prefers a fusion of the old school and the new school. According to Chef T, there's a reason why the old-fashioned way has stuck around for so long. Change things too much and they lose their identity and direction. But you don't have to take it from me. I'm sitting here with Chef T today. So Chef T, let's talk creating flavor with Thanksgiving turkey. I think all of our listeners are really, really interested in seeing what you are working with and where you want to take it.
Turkey, what you want is a product that's not dried out and tough. So one of the things that I like to do to assure that it's not going to be dry and tough is brining the turkey. Thawing it out with plenty of time and then putting it in a brine for 24 hours prior to it being cooked. Also, we like to make sure that we don't overcook it. So you only cook the turkey until the internal temperature of the thigh, and that's the inside of the thigh next to where it meets up with the bottom of the breast. You want this to be at 155 degrees to 160 degrees.
Would you say that's the most accurate way to tell the temperature of a turkey? Because, I have problems with that sometimes. Yeah. I don't know where to check.
Yes, because it is a kind of a hidden from the heat spot. So you need to make sure that it gets to the full internal temperature of 160 degrees while it's resting. So whenever that's at 160 degrees, you remove it from the oven or the heat, whatever process you're working with, and you set it aside covered and let it rest. It'll finish cooking and it'll reabsorb its juices. Now back to brining. What brining is basically a simple solution of salt and water. It's 1 cup of salt to 2 cups of water, or 2 gallons of water, 1 cup of salt to 2 gallons of water. And then you mix whatever other flavors you want to accomplish into your brine. Rosemary, thyme, oregano, savory, peppercorns. I personally like to use some orange juice to create that little citrus. It goes so well with poultry. And you put extra of these things in there, almost like it would be too potent for you if it was a soup, because this is only going to absorb portions of it. It's not going to take it in heavily.
So what exactly is this brining?
So brining is it's salt, water, and then any of the herbs that you have. You boil that, you let it cool, you add another gallon of ice water, and then you submerge the turkey in that for 24 hours. And what brining does is it removes natural juices from the turkey, kind of dehydrating it and causing it to then reabsorb the brining liquid and the flavors that are in causes it to reabsorb the brining liquid and the flavors that are in the brine. And so then that gives it a more depth of flavors throughout the bird. Also, it's adding moisture into the meat.
So do you need a lot of space to brine a turkey, or can you do it in like a regular household refrigerator?
You can, depending on the size of the turkey, you can do it in your refrigerator. If you have a pot big enough to hold the liquid, and completely submerge the turkey. A lot of people will use ice chest, and so you can put your refrigerated turkey into the brine. So you don't do this until the brine is fully cooled, and then you've added the ice water, which you can just basically use ice only at this point, and then put it in a cooler and just close that up. And if it's one of the new coolers like the Yetis or
it keeps
that keep the temperature real low, then it'll be fine overnight. You can check it periodically and add more ice to it if you want to. It really won't affect the brine that much after 12 hours or so. You just want to make sure your temperature is where it needs to be.
I really like that hack because, a lot of people won't take the extra step of brining because there's no space. So that's really interesting. If you have one of those long hours stay coolers, because there's a lot of different brands out there. I mean, Yeti's not the only one, but that's a perfect example. Yeah. If you have one of those or you want to get one of those to brine, I would try it. See how that works out. So if you can't brine, let's say people don't have space and don't have a cooler, how would you suggest they prepare for ultimate flavor on a turkey?
Well, you can always season the night before. I mean, obviously you're storing your turkey somewhere, so you have space for it. So you could take it out the night before, go ahead and get some salt, pepper, different seasoning on it. And then just leave it in the fridge like that. And that's called dry brining. Usually you use an excessive amount of salt for dry brining, but I think you can actually not dry brine, and you just put your seasoning on it and put it in the refrigerator, and that'll help it absorb and get more flavor.
So how long, how many hours is brining? Do you do it frozen?
Well, you can go from frozen for brining. You need to allow an extra roughly 24 hours because it's got to thaw out. And as it's thawing out, it's going to release its juices and then reabsorb the brine. So you have to allow yourself an extra 24 hours just to make sure that it does thaw out completely.
So just for our listeners, full thawing of a turkey, let's say a 15-pound turkey, properly thawing, how long does that take?
In a refrigerator, you got to allow yourself at least 24 hours, 30 to 36 hours. So I always say to make sure you're thawing 48 hours before you're going to season. And so if your seasoning method is brining, then you have to thaw it 72 hours, 3 days before you're going to cook it.
Oh, that's good to know.
Because you have 48 hours for thawing, 24 hours for brining, and then you remove it from the brine, you set it on your counter for 2 hours to 3 hours, let it kind of start to come to room temperature, and then you either smoke it, fry it, or roast it.
Oh, what's your preferred method?
Well, since I am influenced heavily by authentic methods, I think you can achieve the most flavor through smoking. It takes it back to the original tradition of how this stuff used to be cooked. And really, there was a lot of flavor provided by a wooden fire. And that's missed out whenever you're in the oven or in a fryer. Last year, which I think it was probably my favorite turkey, was I brined it for 24 hours, injected it with a infused butter that I make, and then seasoned it, cold smoked for several hours, and then finished it in a fryer. So I ended up with all of the methods of flavor just about, and a nice smoky bird with a crisp skin from the frying. So it was really fun technique, and I can see myself doing that again sometime.
Thank you so much, Chef T, for sitting down with us and answering all of our questions. So for those of you that don't know, Flavor by Chef T is offering his Chef T's signature smoked turkey I believe the cutoff date for that is this Monday. There will be some information about that on the footnotes of this episode, or you can head on over to our Facebook page at Flavor by Chef T and get more information on how you can get on that list. Thank you guys again for joining us, and we hope to get back to you soon with episode 2, which will revolve around soups. We've had a lot of questions on our streaming sites that you guys want to know how Chef T creates his soups. So stay tuned, tell your friends about us, and hopefully you're picking up some cooking tips for Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving, guys. Enjoy your families. This podcast was a BC Creative Hub production. Music for this podcast is Memphis Soul.